All right, everyone get ready because today we are taking a deep dive into something pretty fascinating. Google's new HAIDEF project. That's Health AI Developer Foundations. And trust me, this is exciting stuff. Like, even if you aren't super techie, we're talking about AI for healthcare, but simplified. Imagine if we could build these powerful medical AI models, but we didn't need like mountains and mountains of data. That's the whole goal here. And the implications are huge. We're talking everything from diagnosing diseases to, developing those personalized treatments. And get this, our sources for this deep dive, they cover some pretty mind-blowing examples. Models that can analyze x-rays and, microscopic pathology slides and skin images, even cough sounds.
Cough sounds.
Yeah, you heard it right. But before we just totally get lost in, all the amazing possibilities, let's break down why this is such a big deal in the first place.
Well, one of the biggest roadblocks to medical AI has always been just the sheer amount of resources that it takes. I mean, huge data sets, expert labeling, tons of computing power. It's like trying to run a marathon, but with ankle weights.
And that slow progress, it's not just a tech problem. I mean, it really directly affects how quickly we get those new treatments and diagnostic tools out to everybody. So tell me how HAIDE is supposed to address this. It sounds like almost too good to be true.
Well, it's essentially a toolkit for building medical AI. You can think of it as pre-trained models and specialized tools and guidelines. It's all designed to make the process of building medical AI faster and easier and more accessible.
So instead of starting from scratch every time you're building on this foundation that's already there.
Exactly. And a key part of this whole thing is the foundation model. It's kind of like a brain that's already learned a lot about medical data. It's been trained at a massive scale. So you can actually adapt it for specific tasks without having to teach it everything from the ground up.
And what's really fascinating to me is that HAIDEF isn't just limited to one type of medical data. It's tackling several different kinds of data all at once.
Absolutely. This multimodal approach is definitely one of its biggest strengths. So HAIDEF has models for analyzing radiology images, both X-rays and CT scans. And then there's another model specifically for pathology. The one trained on those super detailed microscopic slides that pathologists use to actually diagnose diseases.
Those are already pretty impressive. But the one that really blew my mind was that dermatology model. I mean, diagnosing skin conditions just from images. That seems like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It is pretty futuristic. And on top of that, there's this other model called HERE, and that one analyzes health-related sounds. Imagine being able to diagnose respiratory illnesses just from the sound of a cough. The possibilities for telemedicine and remote monitoring are huge.
Okay, so we've got all these fascinating models, but how do we know if they actually work?
Right.
Are there real-world examples of HAIDEF being used effectively?
There are actually. Researchers at University College London use the pathology model to better distinguish between different types of sarcoma. That's a rare cancer that can be really hard to diagnose.
So in that case, HAID actually helped to improve the accuracy of cancer diagnoses. That's a big deal.
It is, and it's not just limited to cancer research. A team at Guy's St. Thomas Trust used the X-ray model to identify necrotizing enterocolitis in newborns. It's a very serious condition. And what's really interesting is that HAID often can achieve these results with a lot less data than traditional AI models need.
Less data, faster results. That's like finding a shortcut in a maze. Tell me a little bit more about this data efficiency thing. It seems like a really key part of what makes HAID so promising.
Yeah, so one study actually found that a tuberculosis model built with HAIDF was just as accurate as radiologists in detecting the disease, but it only needed 45 training images. And just to put that in perspective, traditional AI models might need thousands or even tens of thousands of images.
That's insane. So we're talking about potentially cutting down development time and getting these tools out there much faster. But it makes me wonder, with all this talk about research and development, is this just for scientists and tech companies? Or can doctors and hospitals actually use this right now?
That's a great question, and that's a key point about HAIDF. It was designed with real-world healthcare settings in mind. There are different ways to access and use the models depending on your needs and how tech-savvy you are.
Okay, so for those of us who don't speak fluent tech, can you maybe break down those different access methods?
Sure. So there are what are called research endpoints. You can upload data and get results back. That's perfect if you just want to try things out. And then you have open weight models. You can actually download those and integrate them into your own systems. And that gives you a lot more control. And then finally, there are containers, and they package everything you need so you can deploy them really easily.
So it's like choosing the right level of service, from do-it-yourself to, full-blown custom installation. It sounds like Google is really trying to make this technology available to a wide range of users.
Exactly. The whole point is to democratize the use of AI in healthcare. But it's important to remember that HAIDEF is just a tool. It's not magic. You still need careful validation and consideration whenever you're using AI in healthcare.
So no robot doctors taking over just yet?
Not quite. Human expertise and judgment are still super important. HAI is about helping healthcare professionals, not replacing them.
That's reassuring. But even with humans overseeing everything, every healthcare setting is different, right? What about adapting these models to specific patient populations and local conditions?
That's a really good point. Every patient population and every healthcare setting is unique. So adapting the models to the specific context is key. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution.
So it's kind of like baking a cake. You might start with a basic recipe, but you're probably going to need to adjust it based on your oven and the ingredients you've got.
Exactly. And that's where fine-tuning with local data comes in. You want to make sure that the models are accurate and effective for the specific people that they're being used to treat.
Right, that makes sense. So we've covered the basics of HAIDF. You know what it is, how it works, and the potential that it has. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. In part 2 of this deep dive, we're going to explore some real-world applications of HAIDF and see how it's already making a difference in different areas of healthcare.
Yeah, and we'll also look at the potential impact of these technologies on the future of healthcare. What new possibilities might emerge as these tools become more advanced and more widely used.
So stay tuned for part 2, where we'll take an even deeper dive into the world of HAIDF and the future of healthcare powered by AI.
Welcome back to our deep dive on HAIDF.
So we've laid the groundwork, understanding the power and potential of these pre-trained AI models. But now it's time to really see, how this tech is actually playing out in the real world.
One area where HAIDF is already making a big impact is radiology, the CXR Foundation model. The one trained on millions of chest x-rays and reports. It's proving to be incredibly adaptable.
Adaptable, meaning it could be used for a bunch of different tasks.
Exactly. So researchers have used it to detect tuberculosis and to identify signs of COVID-19. They've even used it to assess the quality of radiology reports themselves.
Like having an AI expert.
Yeah.
Making sure those reports are accurate and consistent.
That's a great way to put it. And because of that data efficiency we talked about earlier, you don't need a ton of labeled data to tailor these models for specific tasks or patient populations. This is a game changer for smaller hospitals or hospitals in underserved areas that might not have access to huge data sets.
So it's not just about those big research institutions. HAIDF could really help level the playing field when it comes to healthcare.
Exactly. And think about the potential in emergency rooms, where quick and accurate diagnoses can really make a difference. HAIDF could help triage patients more effectively and identify those really critical conditions faster and ultimately save lives.
That's a powerful thought. Speaking of life-saving applications, I know a lot of our listeners are curious about how AI is impacting cancer research and treatment. What's happening on that front with HAIDF?
Well, the Path Foundation model, the one trained on that massive data set of histopathology slides, it's showing a lot of promise in cancer diagnostics. It can help distinguish between different types of cancer and assess tumor grades. It can even predict how well a patient might respond to certain treatments.
So it's almost like having an AI oncologist working alongside the human doctors.
Yeah, you could say that. This kind of analysis could lead to earlier and more accurate diagnoses and more personalized treatment plans, and ultimately better outcomes for patients.
It really feels like we're on the edge of a new era of personalized medicine. One of the things that really fascinates me about HAEE is its potential to tailor treatments to each individual patient.
And that's where things get really interesting. Imagine combining HAIDF's ability to analyze medical images with genetic data, and even audio recordings of a patient's cough or breathing. You could get this incredibly holistic view of a person's health, and doctors can then make much more informed decisions about the best course of action.
Like by putting a puzzle together.
Yeah.
But instead of just a flat image, you're creating this multidimensional understanding of a person's health.
Exactly, and that's really the power of HAEF. It's that ability to connect the dots between different types of medical data and extract insights that we wouldn't be able to see otherwise.
Okay, this is all super exciting. But as we touched on before, with great power comes great responsibility. We really need to talk about the ethical side of things. Data privacy is a huge concern when you're dealing with such sensitive information.
Absolutely. These models are trained on massive amounts of patient data, so anonymization and security are super important. We need to have really strong systems in place to prevent any misuse or breaches of that data. And it's not just about keeping the data safe, it's also about transparency. How do we make sure that these AI models are making decisions in a way that's understandable and accountable, both to patients and to healthcare professionals?
It's like that old saying, trust but verify. We need to be able to look under the hood and really understand why the AI is making certain recommendations. We can't just blindly accept them.
Right. And that's an area where a lot of research is being focused right now, making AI more transparent and interpretable so that we can trust its decisions.
Now, one question that comes up a lot when we talk about AI is the fear of job displacement. Are doctors and nurses going to be replaced by robots?
That's a valid concern, but it's important to remember that HAIDF and most medical AI tools, they're designed to augment human capabilities, not to replace them. It's like giving doctors a really powerful assistant, not taking away their jobs.
So it's more about collaboration than competition. It's not man versus machine, it's man with machine.
Exactly. In fact, HAIDF could even create new job opportunities in areas like AI development and data analysis and algorithm validation.
Okay, so that paints a bit of a more positive picture. But even if AI isn't replacing jobs entirely, there's still the issue of access and equity. How do we make sure that these tools are available to everyone, not just, people in wealthy countries or those who go to fancy hospitals?
You're right. That's a crucial point. And it all goes back to data diversity. If these models are trained mainly on data from certain populations, they might not perform as well for others. We need to make sure that the data used to train these models reflects the full diversity of the global population.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality and representation. We need data that represents everyone who could potentially benefit from these tools.
Exactly. And that means we need to actively work to collect data from underrepresented groups. And we need to address any biases that might exist in the data sets that we already have.
It feels like this is going to take a global effort. We need researchers and clinicians and policymakers and even patient advocacy groups all working together to make sure that AI is developed and used in a way that's fair and beneficial to everyone.
Absolutely. It's a collective responsibility. And it's so important that we have these conversations about ethics and responsibility right from the beginning.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've looked at the real-world applications of HAIDF, and we've also delved into some of those ethical considerations that come with this powerful technology. But we're not done yet. In part 3, we're going to shift our focus to the future and look at the potential impact of HAI, DF, and other AI technologies on the entire healthcare landscape.
We're going to be asking some big questions. What might the doctor's office or the hospital of the future look like? What new possibilities might emerge as these tools become more sophisticated and more widely used?
So if you're ready to take a leap into the future of healthcare, join us for part 3 of this deep dive as we explore the transformative potential of AI. All right, so welcome back to our final part of this HAI-DEF deep dive. And things are about to get really interesting here. We've talked about how HAI-D is making an impact now, in the present, but it's time to kind of shift gears and put on our futuristic hats and really imagine what healthcare might look like in 10, 20 years down the line. Are you ready to time travel a little bit? Let's imagine a visit to the doctor's office.
Okay, so imagine you walk into the doctor's office and AI is just seamlessly woven into everything. From the minute you check in, your symptoms are analyzed by an AI system, and it might suggest, potential diagnoses and flag anything that seems urgent, for the doctor.
It was like having this superpowered medical assistant that can pre-screen everyone and prioritize care.
Exactly. And then even during the exam, the doctor could use AI tools to analyze medical images, lab results or genetic data, even your voice or a cough, to really get a complete picture of your health.
So it's not about replacing those human skills. It's about giving doctors this deeper level of insight.
Yeah, and this could lead to, faster, more accurate diagnoses, personalized treatment plans based on your genes, maybe even early detection of diseases before you even have symptoms.
Wow. Talk about preventative care. But what about beyond just diagnostics? How might AI change the way we treat diseases?
Well, this is where things get really interesting. Imagine AI-powered drug discovery platforms that can rapidly identify and develop new therapies for diseases that we can't cure right now, or even AI-guided robotic surgery that could allow for these super precise, minimally invasive procedures.
So we're not just talking about treating symptoms. We're talking about potentially curing diseases that were once thought to be incurable.
Exactly. And it's not just, traditional medicine that could be transformed. Think about personalized digital therapies powered by AI. Apps that monitor your health in real time, provide personalized coaching, even adjust your medication dosages based on your individual response.
It's like having a 247 virtual health coach right in your pocket. Now, that's what I call personalized medicine. But thinking bigger picture here for a second, I'm thinking about things like health disparities and access to care for everyone, not just people who can afford the latest technology.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And AI has the potential to really make a difference here. Imagine AI-powered telemedicine platforms that connect people in remote areas with specialists anywhere in the world. It can break down those geographical barriers.
So it's like bringing top-notch medical expertise right to your doorstep, no matter where you live.
Right. And AI could also help with language translation, so patients and doctors who speak different languages could communicate more easily.
So it's not just about better healthcare, it's about making healthcare more equitable, accessible to everyone.
Exactly. And AI can also help us address those biases that we know exist in healthcare by analyzing all of that data. AI can help us identify and flag, disparities in diagnosis and treatment and outcomes so we can make the system fairer for everyone.
It really feels like we're on the edge of a whole new era in healthcare.
Yeah.
But, as we've talked about throughout this whole deep dive, there are some ethical things that we have to think about as we go forward.
Absolutely. Data privacy and transparency and fairness, those have to be top priorities whenever we're using AI in healthcare. We have to make sure that these tools are used responsibly and ethically, and that patient well-being is always the focus.
It's like this balancing act.
Yeah.
Embracing innovation while also protecting human values. But if we can get this right, the possibilities are pretty incredible. So as we kind of wrap up this whole deep dive, what's the main thing you want our listeners to think about?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the future of healthcare is going to be really connected to AI. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's happening right now. And AI has the potential to really change healthcare in ways that we can't even fully imagine yet.
It's exciting and a little bit daunting. But one thing is for sure, this is just the beginning of the conversation. So thank you everyone for joining us for this deep dive into HAI-DEF and the future of healthcare powered by AI. And remember, the future isn't something that just happens to us. It's something we build together. So stay curious and stay informed, and let's create a future where healthcare is smarter and more accessible and more equitable for everyone.